Thank you very much. Yeah, so we work for Amido. We're a technical vendor-agnostic company. We are a people-first business, so that comes across in the people we employ, but also the products we build and the way we operate with our clients, and also how we operate internally as well. We're about 150 people, and we're currently working on about sort of 20 different projects for a number of different clients, through sort of e-commerce to local government to government as well. We are recruiting, but I'm also not allowed to talk about that. We also have a little bonus at the end of the slide. So for those of you who are keen photographers of talk slides, then get your cameras ready, but you're right for a good 20 minutes or so. Okay, so what we're going to talk about, product owners. And I'm sure we've got some product owners in the room, so we're going to raise your hands. Any product owners in the room? Woo! Woo! Big up the product owner, massive. So we're about to talk about some of these product owners, and some of these are product owners we've met, but essentially it's an amalgamation of all the product owners that we have a group of people at Amido who are business analysts and have also come from product management background, who've also met lots of product owners. So the kind of product owners we're talking about aren't specific people, but they are people, sort of a combination, so it's sort of a Venn diagram of product owners. So we're going to talk about that, talk about what we've owned, what we've learned, and then I kind of wrap up at the end to give you a bit of an overview and that extra sizzling bonus. So, what is a product owner? I'm sure everyone has their own views on what a product owner is. Graham's very eloquently talked a little bit about product ownership as well, which is really good. But I want to quote William Shakespeare mostly. Some are born product owners, some achieve product ownership, and some have product ownership thrust upon them. I guess of the people who are product owners, who's had product ownership thrust upon them? A few of you, that's good. Callum at the back. So yeah, just the point really is that some people kind of have it in their blood. Some people want to be product owners. They want to have that kind of lifestyle. They want to own those kind of digital products. Some move from other disciplines. I moved from one discipline to product ownership, and some people do other jobs but are also asked to be a product owner at the same time, which is very challenging. I've done it before myself, so my heart goes out to anyone who's doing that. So I also have a diagram. Hopefully slightly fewer questions about it. But so this is kind of how product owner works in majority of cases we have at Amido. Product owner sits in the middle and works with a consulting development team. So developers, Foxy developers on the left-hand side, the cheeky business analyst, and the project manager. That's a raccoon. I'm not sure what a trait of a raccoon is, but let's assume it's nice. And we also have on the right-hand side the business, but also, as you can see, the product owner is a clear part of the development team. So it's not a kind of chuck it over the wall, back and forth kind of operation. It's about making sure everyone works together as part of the team, but also the product owner, through the development team as well, is communicating back to the business and making sure everyone knows what's going on. So the product owner, in a list of bullet points. So regardless of the journey, it's a really important and complex role, and I'm not just saying that because there are product owners in the room. It doesn't work very well without product owners. Part of the reason, obviously, that Graham and the guys here at Global have brought that part into the business is that it's an essential piece, and without that, you notice it very quickly that people don't have that ownership of it. They're a product stakeholder, a project champion. They have a vision of what they want to build. And they can convey that to the team. So they can kind of talk to these guys who are on the left, make sure they know what's going on, but also understand where stuff is coming from the business. And they own that kind of backlog, they own that list of requirements that they want. And also sometimes, in the case of ways we've worked previously here and with other clients, is that from a business analyst point of view, that relationship is really close-knit. So it's about making sure that together, collaboratively, you get that backlog, you know what's needed and what's the priority order of things to come. It's really hot here, isn't it? Jeez, I just got the sun beaming straight into me. Okay, so moving on. So yeah, and they also need to define that sprint goal. So they need to understand when you're doing through the sprint process, when you're doing sprint planning and that kind of thing, they understand what the ultimate goal is at the end. It's not just to build stuff. It's understanding at the end of that sprint we have something deliverable, something shippable that has value to the business and meets their goals as well. And also, ultimately, they're the ones to sign it off as well. Especially from a consultancy point of view, we can't sign off our own homework. It's really difficult. Well, it's really easy, but it's not really that beneficial to the business. So we need somebody with a business mind, with that business vision to understand what is required and agree to the terms of what's actually been delivered at the end of the sprint. And then they communicate that to the business. So that is really important as well. Not just about this project. Any talk I talk about, communication is the most important thing. If we have rubbish communication, it all falls apart. So aside from the project management and product ownership stuff. So yes, so without further ado, this is the next part of the discussion is around stuff that our business analyst team, there's some of us in the audience as well, have put our heads together and kind of we came up with all sorts of traits for all sorts of product owners, and tried to bring them together into sort of 5 concise sort of stereotypes or archetypes to understand how they might operate. So again, not specific people, look out, see what kind of traits you see and see what traits you might recognise with other product owners you worked with. And this is what we compiled together. So here are some of our friends from the animal world, starting with the tortoise. We'll need that as well.
Right, so product owner type number 1 then is the tortoise. Now this is your guy who they're the subject matter expert in their business, knows their domain inside out, but is relatively new to delivering technology projects and in particular agile methodology. So this guy, his impact on the team is obviously he can get the team up and running, kicking off on day 1, knows his stuff inside out and able to elaborate on the roadmap, on the vision of the product, and then helping them build out the requirements, the delivery. On the flip side, you've then obviously got just how that understanding that way of working, and so it's kind of that learning process or journey that you go through in terms of the ways of working, how that impacts against the team. And that's where, for instance, I had a few years ago when we were building out it was a car manufacturing calculation tool, so you could work out the cost of building a complete, say, Ford Focus, and work out down to the nearest cent how much that cost to build. And you had to throw in all sorts of variables like processor, machinery, local, currency, exchange rate, etc. But our product owner was really much, because he knew what he wanted, he was designing that solution before really defining what the problem was up front. And when you come to say the end of the sprint, when you're talking about trying to sign off different features that the team would be delivering against, there was always this constant desire to get perfection. So it was that piece of UX or UI or interaction in particular was one which he wanted to tweak a little bit more, which then always had a knock-on effect of passing that over to the next sprint. That kind of build up that continuously happens. Which then you kind of get that, you end up in that role of when sign off is not really sign off, and that kind of escalates in terms of your eventual delivery of a shipping product. So kind of the ways of which we try to deal with that at that point, and so your tips of handling a tortoise is looking at so a little bit of, as I say, a bit of onboarding with the coaching, the styling of when we start a sprint, let's stick to the goal of the story that you've put together and agreed upon. But then, if there are changes, then we manage that into the backlog by going over a bit more about what the highlighting of the features are. Because yes, you might want to tweak something to make it look perfect, but equally you want to make sure that you're still adding value from the future and still on course to actually deliver something on time. And what better trick that we found is that doing showcasing different parts of what that eventual UI is, and doing that up front before we enter anything into sprint just help manage the expectations far better than say what we used to have with some particular wireframes, and that's something that is good for working out the kind of flow in that experience, but obviously not what the final end product's going to look and feel like. So with that, we'll go to the second type, which is our gorilla.
The gorilla. I'm not singing, sorry. So the gorilla knows his importance. He knows he holds all the money and all of the bananas. He's probably been in agile environments before, but he thinks he kind of knows how agile works, but he probably doesn't. He does know the business. So although he may be loud and brash, he knows what the business wants, and he has that vision in his head. So he's very good at that. He's very good at having that kind of clarity of thought, of kind of knowing how the business wants to operate and what features they want to deliver. And he's definitely one person who will let his feelings known to the team for good or bad. So there's no chance of kind of him hiding things away because he's a bit nervous about saying it. He will definitely let you know. And he can definitely make decisions quickly when required. So he's somebody who will be able to go in and, given a problem or given a challenge that the team is under, he can actually make those decisions. Unfortunately, he does often take shortcuts. He will often also make very last-minute changes. I've definitely worked with a gorilla quite a long time ago, probably in excess of sort of 4 or 5 years ago now, who would quite often go to refinement sessions with me, sometimes when he could turn up, and then on the day before planning, or on the day of planning, would quite often say, you know what, I had a shower moment and changed my mind. Gorillas and showers, he thought that was going to be a topic today. But yeah, he would change his mind, and then it would throw the whole planning process into chaos, and we had to kind of change how we operated. And we definitely had to kind of do some sort of re-education with him to make him understand how the Agile process was actually working, and that Agile didn't mean just changing his mind every 2 minutes. He can be very reactionary. He can be somebody who needs to calm down quite a lot. So he's definitely very challenging. So with this particular gorilla that I worked with, he would often conveniently forget discussions he'd had or agreements he'd made, to the point where myself and the project manager ended up, and this is going to date it, screenshotting Skype conversations, because quite often, even when we referred back to them, we'd mysteriously find those conversations had been deleted. So I still have a folder somewhere of those screenshots. It's possibly a GDPR problem. So that is a gorilla. He's very challenging. He does know what he wants. You do know where you are with your gorilla, but it is challenging day to day and not somebody you probably want to work with for the rest of your life. So following that, we move on to how we handle the gorilla. Handling gorillas, another thing. So you definitely need to get to know them from the outset, understand their problems, understand the things the pressures they have, understand how they work day to day and the things that are going to cause them headaches or cause them frustrations. And definitely kind of going back to that original side, make sure they're in part of the team. It's not you are doing this thing for us, it's us doing this thing together. Make sure you can kind of share in that success. The problem with a gorilla is often that he will take all credit for any of the work, which, depending on how you roll, might bother you or not, but he will do that. But yeah, communicate to the extreme with him, make sure he knows what's going on and his stakeholders and the champions of the product, and get written sign-off and screenshot Skype, or I don't know, maybe there's another technology now, I don't know. Slack, I know. So now, Snow Leopard comes next.
Okay then, so snow, I'm giving it a slow down just to get cool again. So this is all about your absent product owner. So you're much like a snow leopard, you're left wondering whether they actually really exist at all. We found that quite a few times it can be, but this is someone who's normally really competent in their delivery of not only their expertise of the users and the groups, but also in delivering as well. And it's from there that then, so day one, they're obviously really keen, they're there, they want to offload all this information to their team, get them up and running, but then soon they just stop coming to ceremonies and it's your agile ceremony, stop answering the questions that your team has, and all to the point that they're less and less engaged, and normally they've then basically gone off to look after another product, or perhaps they've had this force upon them and it's they've gone back to doing their day job essentially. So what we found,
Proxy.
So yes, all this then leads to essentially the teams then wanting obviously the answers that need to happen for the sprint to be completed. So then transpires in the end is the proxy product owner, which something is, I think, myself and Leo and other BAs, especially in the consultancy side, that initial delivery for launch, we end up taking that role on quite a lot. And obviously that's dangerous because, as we've said, I think Graham as well as Leo, is just if you lose that contact with the business, then your value depreciates as decisions are made based on the best known information to that person at that time, and that's where.
It's all right.
So that's where you get the less waste. You basically get the wastage in terms of what you have, and then. Sorry. Yes. So that's where you have those things, which is no fault of the product owner themselves, but they are obviously over-reliant on by the business and spread too thinly. So to compensate against that quite a lot, we then communicate a lot over, so keep that persistent communication. So what I found worked quite well was like weekly kind of summary emails, even because everyone still loves checking their email even day and night. And that kind of summarise what we were doing in the sprint, any blockers, what we're going to do next, and that kind of gave the opportunity for the PO to actually like just review, flag any issues up, and we've had that a few times that when then we averted them going into doing something that was incorrect. We also worked around doing fitting stuff around them, so telling that one of our colleagues did more recently was like they started scheduling even 15-minute sessions, so weekly sessions when they knew they were guaranteed to like see the PO, and the PO didn't feel like overburdened or like that they were going to sit down for hours on end to talk about something. So you can just like moving that from like regular feedback at least and keep maintaining some views. And then finally, like obviously in this scenario, that you've got like that, you have to be ready to escalate to the wider business because you're just not going to achieve like potentially like what you set out to achieve with the product goal. Moving on, we got the map.
Do you want to go around the back? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, go on.
We have a routine now. We weren't quite sure the setup, so it's difficult to know between the two of us. So the mouse, we have the mouse. So the mouse has a deep understanding of the current business. He knows what's going on. He knows how things operate. He is a PO that knows the business very well, so he's been ingrained there. He's probably been there a very long time as well, which is really, really good because it means that as well as knowing the business, he knows all the contacts within the business, and it's really important, especially from a consultancy point of view. We definitely find that one of the most challenging things at the start is to come in and figure out who's who we need to speak to, and who has the information that's required. They do provide minimum kind of interference within the team, which is a good thing from a sort of pure development point of view, but it can be challenging as well with regard to kind of making sure you have the input that you require for various requirements and prioritization and that kind of thing. And they're unlikely to be really sort of critical of the team, and they're pretty much going to be happy with whatever you deliver to them, which you can understand that on the surface that sounds great, but actually is a bit of a nightmare. So they're often kind of naive to the agile process. They involve quite a lot of coaching and understanding from the outset. And they don't necessarily understand the role, which is why that thing is really key. So sort of surrounding them and involving them in a team that is agile can be really beneficial at that point. And they can be sort of easily led and susceptible to ideas. So it's really important that you don't just present them with one idea. You give them lots of different ideas, lots of different options, and something they can pick from, and you can help guide them with the kind of pros and cons of each of those decisions and things that might be the sort of way to go for the development team. And what else can I tell you about the mouse? So it kind of timidly works around the business, and it can be quite challenging. So there's a few things you can do to help the mouse. So how do you handle a mouse? Well, you pick them up like that, really carefully. Don't pick up mice, because often in London they're rats. So they do need coaching. They need encouragement. You have to make it easy for them to understand that they don't have to be an expert straight off the bat. It's okay to come into a product owner role, especially if it's been handed to you rather than something you've chosen. It's a very difficult role to take on, so it's really important to make sure that you can help them along that journey, and make sort of a clear definition of what it is you want and the pros and cons of each of those things, as we said, and just be honest about what you think with them. So you have to be quite direct with them and make sure you kind of draw out those best traits that you want from a product owner. And finally, it's the unicorn.
Best one. So, what would a slideshow be about unicorn? So this is where you come back down to, so what would be like your ideal, your perfect product owner? Or is it just like a mythical thing? If you thought off the bat, what kind of the key things would be? It would be someone who's really engaged with their users constantly, knows their groups, find new and existing user groups, engage with them, understand the value, what your products can bring to them, and understand what should be next to deliver, and whether that's valuable for the product, and on the flip side, a valuable investment for the business, and to protect that investment. We'd also have someone then that is engaged constantly, so they know they keep a healthy backlog of stories that guys can work on, and knows what's actually in that backlog as well. And then thirdly, you've got someone who's then always available to the team. So they're obviously attending all the ceremonies, able to clarify as and when. But I hate these clippers. So, but actually, when you think it a bit more further, it's like actually do you need someone who is like that all the time? If you then consider the product life cycle, and so obviously we're quite involved a lot of the time at the early start of a new product usually, getting it into launch. But then you've got ones where after that initial launch, it's all about driving the product forward, putting in the improvements that matter most, until eventually it hits the retirement, and then what's the next thing to do after that. And during that time, you may get someone like the characteristics of the Tortoise, who's actually more useful then to actually just really who understands that user needs so much better, perhaps. So that had us thinking more around like the individuals and like the traits maybe like of the product owner that you really want. And that's where it's a case of looking at the core strengths of like being proactive, being decisive, being engaged, being adaptive, as like with not only to like the team and everything, but the product, and then most importantly the people skills. And because they have to basically engage with so many people from like the dev teams, like actually launching a product to market, and then like the exec board as well. And they are the advocate of the product, so they need to bring that kind of like buzz about it, the colour to it, and that's their key role. So, what do you do with a unicorn? You buy them treats, you stroke their mane, better than a horn I thought, and it's going to be looking at enjoying it while it lasts. So usually this is where someone like, if you become a unicorn in your company, you're more likely to be then turning into a snow leopard for that product, because as soon as you get so well on that, you end up getting spread across the different products, more products, and then or helping move your whole product team forward. And that's when it comes down to more companies and investing in the product management, product ownership functions, and companies recognising that investment in that pays off quite well, and it's really trying to pull out what the PO value can bring to a business. Not only just, I guess, reducing the lemons, product lemon, of like you can actually making sure you build the right products at the right time to release that, to increase the revenue and the profit of the overall business. And that's where our unicorns and product owners work.
Thank you. Know your product owner. So as we kind of said it from the start, these are really, I'm going to swap these over. These are really kind of extreme examples. They're not specific people that we've met. And they are, we try to identify as many as we could and trying to sort of boil that down into some kind of extreme examples that you would have seen. But regardless of your role, whether you're a business analyst or a UX designer or a head of content delivery, commercial, Graham, or anyone within the team, you need to know those product owners, know their roles, and know how they operate. And all POs are unique, and that's okay. We're not expecting every single person to be a unicorn, but we need to kind of work on those traits that we find beneficial within the team and help them along that journey by understanding the pressures that they're under. And understand what their goals and KPIs are. So if you understand the pressures that somebody else is on, you can kind of help them along that journey and help them understand. And it might be simple things that within the team and sort of amongst the agile process you can work on to make sure they get that information and make their lives a little bit easier. Because it is a really hard job. I've done it. So it's the more the teams can help you do that, the better. And some form of the unicorn exists in all product owners, whether it's the flowery feet or the multicoloured mane. It's all in there. So, the free stuff. You can take a photo of this, but we also are on various social channels, at We Are Amido on Twitter and the other platforms that you're aware of. So if you don't get a chance to take a photo of that, you want to either shout afterwards and I can show it to you again at the end, or check on our Twitter feed and it will be on there shortly as well. This is a whole guide that we've written, and a part of that, contained in part of that, is the product owner, a sort of a manifesto of sorts that sort of helps you understand what it is and what they should do, and some of the stuff we've talked about today. That's a lot. Thank you very much. Really appreciate. It's really, really hot, so thank you very much for listening and being so engaging. It's nice to look out and see some smiling faces, so thank you very much. Okay.